I'm Malcolm Van Delst, and this is another excerpt from the Low Self-Esteem Reading Room. I'm going to keep going with this and see if I can work out the kinks. It's about 20,000 words, an experimental illustrated novella about a man losing his sanity. Last week, there was a foreword where I explained that the book was deliberately lacking in structure because I wanted to create a different form. We had Kyle, an MC at a reading night. Kyle gets up on stage and he reads some of his work. And the idea is that it's all in Kyle's head. An uncomfortable interruption. The young man stops reading. "Thank you," he says, which spurs the audience to clap. "Thank you." Next is Cara. "Cara!" He extends his hand to a baggy clothes-wearing, dirty-haired young girl as she comes to the stage. Oh, but she is young. 14? She wears a plaid open shirt over a whitish V-neck tee and jeans. Her running shoes are held together with duct tape. She doesn't look up. "Hi," she says, scanning the audience through her eyebrows. Her voice is surprisingly deep. My story is science fiction. Excuse me," says the young man. "Excuse me." He's up on stage now, grabbing the mic from Cara. "I've changed my summary statement. My book is called The Anti-Book, and you'll just have to read it." He hesitates, pushes the mic back into Cara's hands, and runs off. Just as Cara starts to speak, he comes back and takes the mic again. It's not really Cara, by the way. This is just me in another form. All the stories, all the poems, and he waves his hand around, whatever. They're mine. He deflates, gives Cara back the mic, and slouches off stage. I'm Malcolm, by the way," he says over his shoulder. Location. Oh, hey, just so you know, the Low Self-Esteem Reading Room happens at a store that sells fancy homemade stationery supplies. It's an art store, I guess, that sells artistic art supplies. There are drawing pads with pictures of deer and foxes on them, and books like I Like to Draw, filled with amateurish, charming line drawings of evergreen trees and sad young faces. There's a room in the back where the reading night happens on Friday nights. Piss alien. Yellow, reads Cara. It was a bright day. I watched my piss splash against the pavement and regarded the abscesses on my arms. I wasn't too concerned because I had learned to detach from my body. Well, actually, it's not my body, I forget. I hope they will bring me home soon because I recognize this. I identify with my body, moving into what the Earthians call Stockholm Syndrome. It means I'm forgetting my reason for being here and emphasizing too strongly with the Earthians. It's true. At the beginning of my tour, I was operating the body. I knew what to say, how to walk, when to sweat and when to redden. I knew how to modulate my voice and control every tiny detail of the body, my space submarine, if you will, which mimicked perfectly the form of Earth's dominant animal, the human. I had been given one of the best bodies from the storehouse. It was modeled after a famous Earthian entertainer, Brad Pitt, but had a central directing system modeled after Earthian political leader, Putin. And the research system had been ripped out and replaced with one after a famous female singer, Mariah Carey. Crazy, but it really worked. It was, as the Earthians might say, a Ferrari of a body. A Ferrari is a very fast Earthian spaceship. Virile, brilliant, and achingly sensitive. This body verged on superhero. It was easy to make a home in it, to get into operating it, and to neglect calling my home planet Tiresias, which is why I had been chosen. Along with several years' experience, I was newly married to a beautiful partner with whom I had recently had twins, one boy and one girl, Alex and Alicia. I was not someone, it was considered, who would lose myself in my spaceship. Yet here I was, detached from myself, not operating the ship, but watching it operate me. The central directing system had taken over. I hoped they'd bring me home soon. My mission was a fact-finding one. There was an area with an unusually high amount of open connections into Earthian consciousness. I was to investigate and send back data on securing a stable, long-term connection to that consciousness, because if we wanted to jack in and create an ooh, we needed something long-term, several years, in fact, in Earthian time. To date, the most we'd been able to manage was a few minutes. Mine was a tough tour, a long way from any meaningful results. Dark piss yellow. I finished pissing and wandered down the street, trying not to scratch my sores, trying to avoid contact with the Earthians. Up or down, so many of them say as I pass. They want to give me powders or crystals that they consume or inject in exchange for bits of paper or metal. The powders and crystals break down Earthian consciousness and give us a gateway in. Unfortunately, the Earthians who use these substances are erratic and unstable. I can't really tell if that is the result of the substances or if the Earthians who take the substances are erratic and unstable to begin with. Many Earthians who take the stuff are destroyed by our enemy, the Plator. The crack and heroin, as the Earthians call the substances, take over the Earthian user's nervous system. That's when we jack in. Unfortunately, we've not yet managed to keep the Earthian users alive long enough while they use the stuff. The Plator wash into the user's systems, scatter inside and consume the user's energy while driving them to feed and feed and feed until they die. Earthian users are ransacked, in essence, by the Plator. The Plator may be our enemies, but that doesn't mean I don't admire them. They're tiny. I can't see them when I'm in my Earthian body unless I use what the Earthians call a microscope. There are about 10 Plators in each area the size of an Earthian pinhead. The Plators are brilliant in color, and no two Plators' color is exactly alike. They're brilliant in mental functions, too, if you could call how Plators process data a mental function. Data passes through them like an Earthian through fog. They surround data and take an imprint of the mold they make. That's the closest I can come to describing how they learn, but it really doesn't capture the essence of it. The molds are forever changing with new data, though they seem to control it to an extent. I've seen them hold on to molds of particularly comely nanofacets, for example, or soft transpods, for years and years. I guess it's not really that they hold on to the molds, but more that they keep them at the surface. The molds go deep, deep inside the Plator. Plators live in several realities in any given time. They move from Earthian space via tiny tunnels into smaller but also larger reality that is also, of course, permeated with their Plator reality. But they can see the line between their ever-present reality and whatever foreign one they're in. They're both of and apart. Plators don't have an equivalent to the Earthians' Earth because they exist everywhere. Yellow, green. When the humans are transformed by the heroin or crack, we can jack into their consciousness, but we need a lot of concurrent open connections. Vancouver, this Earthian city on the northern west part of a continent called North America, has an extraordinary amount of open connections. There are other areas with a lot of open connections, but we haven't been able to utilize them, either because of the weather, terrain, or the Earthians living in the area. To date, Vancouver has proven the most feasible, so we've based our research there. The wet weather and the low incidence of wind are helpful, combined with a natural amount of Earthians using the substances we need them to be using. We just need to figure out a way to keep the portals clear while we stabilize our connections.